Welcome back to my channel. I'm James, and today we're going to be discussing a cult classic horror film that's really one of those films I discovered kind of randomly many years ago when it first came out. And it's one of those films that's kind of just grown over time. Initially when it came out it wasn't super popular, and now it's considered one of the best werewolf movies that's been released on a very small budget. So today I'm excited to announce we're going to deep dive into Dog Soldiers on 4K Ultra HD. And this is the brand new 4K restoration that's been supervised and overseen by the director himself and cinematographer and approved by the director. And it's also been done basically by Second Sight. Now we're going to be diving into this release, which was sent to me early for review from Shout Factory and Scream Factory, same company. But anyhow, big shout out to them for sending this to me early for review. Now we're going to be comparing this to the previous Blu-ray editions that had come out before and talking about them. There's a lot of things that I've got to discuss about what the state of the film is before we even get into the quality of the 4K, so you understand what the quality of this is affected by the state of the film and camera negatives before we even get into this a little bit here. Now, before we dive into this, make sure to go down and give this video a like and a thumbs up for me. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and the bell notification. That way you never miss out on any of this early or exclusive content that you're only going to find here on my YouTube channel. Now, discussing Dog Soldiers as a film, before we get into more of the nitty-gritty of all my exclusive testing and image comparisons here, basically Dog Soldiers was basically filmed on a very small budget. And after it was filmed, the director Neil Marshall, I guess the studio and himself lost the films, and the original camera negatives were gone. Well, they actually released some Blu-ray releases, which we're going to get into the comparisons here, but on those Blu-ray releases, they were very poor. Numerous technical issues, edge enhancement, blocking. I mean, I could go on for a long time about all the issues that either of those have. The first Blu-ray was very soft image. It was very desaturated. Definitely had horrible like clumping with the film grain. It just wasn't great. So then Shout Factory came and did another release. And that actually was one that they worked with the director. The problem was they couldn't find the original film negatives. And then they actually ended up using a print that was used to show in theaters, which is never a great option because it changed the look of the film drastically. And it looked drastically different than even the previous Blu-ray, but with numerous other issues, being too dark, and obviously the actual like image itself losing a lot of just details with black crush and other things that were inherent with that release because they weren't using an original camera negative. Well, with this new release, this is the first time they've gone back to the original camera negative. They were able to locate an original camera negative, which is why this is such a big deal for Dog Soldiers fans, is because they actually went back and scanned the original camera negatives to create this new 4K restoration. And both the director and the original cinematographer were involved in this and approved this. And this was actually done by Second Sight. And that's a question a lot of people have asked recently. Is this release from Shout and Scream Factory any different than the release that Second Sight did? Well, directly from Scream Factory and Second Sight, this is the exact same transfer, the exact same 4K restoration on 4K Ultra HD that's both on the Second Sight release and on this Scream Factory Shout Factory 4K Ultra HD. So no matter which one you end up deciding if you want to get after you end up watching my review, they actually have the same transfer on them. So that is nice for all of us worldwide. So that way you're not worried about, hey, if I get one, is one different than the other? So when I'm doing these image comparisons, remember, they're always off of the native image that's on these discs. That means without all of the content that your TV can add to it, whether it's motion smoothing, blur, whether you have any of those game enhancers on there that basically smooth out the image and take away details, or any of those things, color, saturation you can pump up on your TV. This is the native image that's present on these discs. And the reason that's important to understand is after the last couple of reviews, I guess I got a lot of new people to the channel that basically kind of didn't understand that their TVs have a bunch of settings that can drastically affect a 4K image. And that's why I always suggest getting your TVs professionally calibrated and turning off all of those motion smoothing and false image enhancing things that try to make it look kind of soap opera effect is what I call it. But a lot of like game motion things that cause the image to speed up, things like that, change the look of the 4K and add a smooth image that takes away natural details that are present on these discs. So that is something you're going to want to look into if you haven't done so already, because you're not actually getting the image you're supposed to see that's present on these discs if you don't do that. And that's where 4K content is drastically different than even just Blu-ray content was before. Now I'm going to do something a little different with all of you. Because of all my exclusive testing I do with all of these, there is something that I discovered through my exclusive testing that's very important for all of you to understand about these releases from Scream Factory, Shout Factory, and Second Sight. So I'm going to show you an image up above, and this image right here is going to be the Dolby Vision transfer, showing you roughly what the Dolby Vision native look of that Dolby Vision transfer is that's present on these discs. Now, the reason I'm starting off with that and doing something a little different here just to begin with is there's something very important that I discovered that really isn't being talked about. Well, on the Dolby Vision transfer that you see there, that image, when you see it by yourself, you think, man, it looks pretty dark and pretty deep and looks okay. Well, here's what I discovered. As always, when I test between all of my calibrated displays and different 4K displays that I have, and then do these image comparisons side by side, I discovered something quite shocking. I watched the movie first with the HDR10 transfer, which I'm going to show you over here now. This is the exact same image, but on the HDR10 transfer, which on YouTube, remember, it's standard HDR, so it's only going to show you so much in this screenshot comparison here because it's dumbing things down to basically the lowest denominator, which that's a whole nother explanation to get into later on, but it'll give you the example of what you need to know here. So this is what roughly the HDR10 transfer looks like. Now, obviously on your home TV, the HDR is going to come out so much more because it's not being dumbed down at all. But this gives you the rough idea of what it looks like, basically colors and depth to the image, things like that. On the Dolby Vision, it's anywhere between 20 to 30% darker on most of the entire movie than it is on the HDR10 transfer. Overall, that HDR10 transfer was much more enjoyable, and I actually stopped watching it in Dolby Vision completely and changed it over to HDR10 after I'd watched over half the movie in Dolby Vision, went back and started watching it again from the beginning in HDR10 to make sure to see exactly what the differences were, went through them both side by side, and that's exactly what you're looking at. It is a drastic difference. And I didn't really enjoy the Dolby Vision transfer because of how dark it was, and here's the things I encountered when going through it. There was some black crush, as you can notice in that image. There's a lot of black crush in that image. And throughout a lot of the darker scenes of the movie, because it is a werewolf movie and takes place mostly at night, there is a lot of dark scenes. And a lot of them appear that way in comparison to the HDR10 transfer where you can see more of it. Now, keep in mind, like I was talking about, the camera negatives are not in great condition. Now keep in mind, you're never going to have Dog Soldiers in a perfect 4K transfer because of the status of the original camera negatives and how badly damaged they are, and it was filmed on such a low budget. There is heavy film grain, and you'll notice that in the image above here when I'm comparing it to that Dolby Vision anyways. I mean, you do get blocking on either version of them no matter what, whether it's Dolby Vision or HDR10, there's blocking in it. It's not so heavy like the previous Blu-rays were, and that'll be reflected later on in my review score, and it's very important to stay till the end of my review score because I sum up everything, and there's a lot of things that kind of go behind this. Now, most of you that know about Dog Soldiers, because of how badly it's been represented on HD and things like that, it's never had a great transfer before. This does look better than it's ever been before, so I don't want to deceive you into thinking, hey, that this 4K doesn't look better than those previous Blu-rays before. It does. Now I'm going to switch and I'm going to show you this same image that you're seeing here, but from the previous Shout Factory Blu-ray release that was released before. That's that same image, but on the Blu-ray release. As you can see, it wasn't great. Obviously, it had a very grayish tone to it. There was a lot of very, very dark elements to it, kind of similar to the Dolby Vision, but not exactly, in a completely different type of way, where it just kind of overall had a sheen over it of just, I mean, just looked bad. So the actual Blu-ray before just didn't look great on Shout Factory anyways, but I wanted to show you the differences between the three of them, especially because the Dolby Vision and HDR transfers between them were so drastically different that the HDR10 is what I enjoyed watching this in. The Dolby Vision, I just really didn't like. It was so dark, I really had a hard time seeing much of it. anything in the darker scenes of the movie. And I really didn't enjoy the Dolby Vision transfer that much, and I have numerous 4K displays, as most of you know, and numerous of them are professionally calibrated. So I go through each different manufacturer, and I had the same results no matter what player I played it on, no matter what TV I played it on, whether it was the Dolby Vision, which was, in my opinion, too dark. The HDR10 was the best option of all of them, which was a surprising thing because usually that doesn't happen. Now, if after you get done watching my review and hearing my review score, you decide you want to pick up this release and add it to your collection, as always, I will have the 4K editions listed out with the Amazon links in the description section right below and pinned as a comment in the comment section below. So you can click on that, it takes you straight out to Amazon. I've made it nice and easy for you, and that's at no extra cost to you. So when you click on that, it's the same price as everywhere on sale, and they ship it straight to your home no matter where you live worldwide. And I'll have all those listed out down below for you to click on after you get done watching this review and hearing my review score. Now, this Dog Soldiers is presented in a native 4K 2160p. So they did scan, like I said, the original camera negatives for the first time, which is what helps this release look so much better than the previous Blu-ray release. Though, like I was talking about with film grain, it is very inconsistent because, again, it was low budget and was not stored well, and they couldn't even find the original film elements for a very long time. Well, it's very heavy, clumpy in some spots, which causes some blocking. There is some blocking that appears in it, which, to my understanding, is never going to go away because of the condition of the original film elements. This is the best that they can do. Now, it's still a huge drastic improvement over Shout Factory's previous Blu-ray release, so it is a nice improvement over that. But compared to other 4Ks, you have to take your fandom out of how much you love Dog Soldiers as a film, and that's what I had to do. I had to take that out and look at this objectively compared to hundreds of other 4Ks I've reviewed and tested over the years. And that's where this film grain and things like that, it's so inconsistent throughout it. You'll get some scenes where honestly it seems very noisy on the screen because the film grain is very unstable and blocky at times. So keep that in mind. Though it was that way on any of the previous Blu-rays, it was even way worse than what you have on this. So again, it is levels of improvement you get on this 4K over the previous Blu-ray. Now, talking about the audio mix on this, that's another important thing to talk about here. Dog Soldiers never sounded that great. Whether it was the previous Blu-ray releases or not, the audio mix on it was always very soft, and there were scenes that it was hard to hear. Well, on the new 4K, those same things are still present. Now, are some areas easier to hear? Yes. But overall, through the entire film, it was a very, very soft audio mix. I had to turn it up 10 notches louder and higher on my receiver than I do have to watch almost any other 4K I'd normally put in. Usually there's a little discrepancy. I'll turn it up by 1, 2, maybe 3 on the high end. This one was between around 10 to 11 notches higher than even my highest 4Ks I have to turn up because their audio mixes might be softer. So that just gives you a representation. The actual decibels and things on this were a very low audio mix, and it's inconsistent, but it's been that way on the Blu-ray. So remember, again here, I'm just trying to give you the differences. I'm not just trying to bash this 4K release because it is still an upgrade. It's just not so huge that you're gonna say, man, this blew me away. It is a DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 mix and a 2.0 mix in English. So on both of those, it didn't matter. You still had the same things. There's a lot of times when they're talking that it's so low and soft that you really have to strain to hear it. So you turn it way up. And then there'll be a sound of gunfire, for example. All of a sudden, it'll be real loud. All of a sudden, you got to turn it back down. So it's very, very just kind of inconsistent. Has lots of big fluctuations throughout the audio mix. But again, that's always been present. It just seems like there's only so much they can do. And without doing a whole brand new Dolby Atmos mix, this is the best, I guess, that it's going to sound. Now, they did keep this in the original aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1. They didn't cut down and change that because they worked with the original camera negatives for the first time, which is nice that this got retained in its original aspect ratio. Now, showing you what you get in this, you do get a nice collector's edition slipcover. I really like the artwork Shout Factory did. Talks about Dog Soldiers on the side. Talks back here, new 4K scan of the original negative. Though an interesting little tidbit, recently I did the Red Dawn early review here about a week ago. On the back of the box, they listed some things that are actually nowhere on the discs themselves. Now, I haven't gotten a response yet. I guess they're working on figuring out what should or shouldn't have been on there, but they haven't actually gotten back to me at Shout Factory yet on Red Dawn. Once I do, I said I'll update all of you. But as far as this goes, this is another odd anomaly. It talks about the HDR10 on here, but nowhere on here does it mention even a logo of Dolby Vision. So it's another thing of where maybe Shout and Scream Factory accidentally didn't put the logo they should have on this, put an incorrect Dolby Atmos logo on that one. I don't know, but it's nowhere on here. It doesn't talk about it, but that is present on it. It's just, to me, like I said, you have those issues and things like that with the Dolby Vision anyways. Now, getting to your case here, there is no reversible artwork, but when you get inside, you do get 2 discs here. Now, your Blu-ray does have the new 4K restoration available on it, so this is not the old, basically Scream Factory incorrect transfer that they did from basically what was shown in theaters. This is the new 4K transfer just on a Blu-ray, obviously dumbed down with no HDR. This is region locked though, so keep that in mind. The Blu-ray is region locked. On your actual 4K, it is region free, tested it as I always do. So as most of the time, a lot of Scream Factory, Shout Factories are region locked, but I'll always test them for all of you and my international audience as well. This one is region free on your 4K Ultra HD. But again, no logos on here at all for Dolby Vision, whereas like on Red Dawn, they put a bunch of logos that technically aren't present on it. So in this case, I don't know, maybe the person doing the logos just kind of doesn't add the things when they should, or adds too much when they shouldn't, but hopefully I get a response here soon from them and they'll kind of let me know what's actually going on with that Red Dawn release. Talking about special features, this does retain the special features that were released previously on Shout Factory's Blu-ray release, but there is a bunch of new things you do get on this. You get a new audio commentary, you get a new behind-the-scenes interview with the director Neil Marshall, you get another behind-the-scenes basically talking about lycanthropy and kind of the whole things behind werewolves and the mythology behind them, and then you get another new video essay, and that's on top of the things we got before from the Shout Factory release. So the nice thing is they did provide a bunch of new things, especially them adding a bunch of new content for this release really does make it the best version of Dog Soldiers that ever has been released, with a bunch of new content and special features to dive into. Now, getting to my review score. This is one that I struggled with, and here's why. I've told all of you I try to keep things obviously on the same level and the same playing field. When I'm comparing things, I have an algorithm that I figure out basically, here's how I rate things. So much for image, so much for sound quality, so much for packaging, so much for what they've given us, so much for errors and issues that are on discs. And it's a long thing that I've done for many years, and that's how I come up with my review scores. And most of the time I've got to take out my personal opinion as far as fandom goes for the film, because what I'm reviewing is the quality of this transfer. The film itself I enjoy. Dog Soldiers is one of those films that it's a fun werewolf movie that it was done on a low budget, but has some really good storytelling, keeps things moving. Yeah, there's some things that you could say, hey, maybe are slightly hokey because maybe it's not as realistic as somebody that spent, hundreds of millions of dollars, but it shows you what they could do with a small budget and keeps things moving in a really good pace, that it really has some cool action scenes in it and things like that that make it just a really fun werewolf horror movie. So I do enjoy the film, and I am excited that they released it on 4K Ultra HD. But here's where I have to take that excitement out of it. Because the transfer just is not gorgeous. There is inconsistencies even in the HDR transfer, like what I was talking about for HDR10. I mean, the film grain's really all over the place, and it's stuff like that that I know they can't fix, but I'm still comparing it to what all these other transfers are. Yes, it's better than the Blu-ray was. But so my review score for Dog Soldiers on 4K Ultra HD from Second Sight and Scream Factory is a 7.8. It's a decent release. It's something that if you like Dog Soldiers or you haven't seen it before, obviously this is the best release and the best way to ever view this film. And this is what I recommend picking up. And it's a fun film. Just don't go into it, and I don't want to hear a bunch of complaints saying, hey, well, it doesn't look that great, because I did warn you, it's not a gorgeous transfer. It's never going to be. It's got so many things that are working against it that no matter how much time they spend trying to restore this like they have already, there's limitations. And this is the best it's going to look, and that's where that 7.8 comes from. Because of the audio mix, it didn't get a new Dolby Atmos mix, and all of those things that I mentioned before. It is recommended if you like Dog Soldiers, if you like werewolf movies, if you want a good horror movie. But I do suggest when you watch it on the HDR10. Turn it off if it starts on Dolby Vision, because you will be disappointed. I sure was on every single display I put it in. It was so drastically darker than the HDR10 was, and the HDR10 has good black levels in it, but it was without heavy black crush. Now, The HDR10 still had some instances of black crush in it, but so did all the previous Blu-rays. I mean, it didn't matter which one it was that was present in it because of the actual state of the camera negatives anyways. So, but the difference is I mean, the Dolby Vision was so overly blown that it just was not enjoyable. So that's where it comes from, that 7.8 is because of all the different issues that are present on the original film anyways that they just can't fix or haven't fixed, and I don't know that they ever are. But this is the best Dog Soldiers has looked, so if you're excited for Dog Soldiers as a film or you haven't checked it out, this is one of those that this is the way that I would suggest watching it, because compared to those Blu-rays, the Blu-rays did look really bad, and never once did they ever look good in any scenes. Nice thing is they didn't use the DNR in this or anything like that, so it didn't DNR it out where there isn't film grain. It's just, like I said, you will have all those inconsistencies that show up throughout it. Now, as always, I put the links for this down in the description section and as a pinned comment below. After watching this now, if you decide you want to pick this up or add this to your collection, I know this review's out about a week and a half, 2 weeks early before release date. But you can click on that and either pre-order it, or if you're watching this after the release date, you can buy it through those links down there. They send you straight to Amazon, and I made it nice and easy for you. And that's at no extra cost to you. So when you click on those, there's no extra charges. It charges you the same amount as everywhere else on sale. And that does help to support this YouTube channel just a little bit. So make sure if you're gonna buy it to click through those links down below in the description section or as a pinned comment. Make sure to let me know your thoughts. Start the conversation in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts about Dog Soldiers, about what your thoughts are if you're excited about this 4K release, all of those things. I'm always curious to hear from all of you. I know this wasn't maybe as thrilling as what you'd hoped it was, but you have to set your expectations correctly. And that's why I always, when I test everything, when I do these side-by-side comparisons, you can just really see so much difference between just putting a movie in and watching it without seeing everything side by side. And that's specifically why over the years I've always exclusively tested everything. So that way I can give you an idea of what actually the comparisons are. Yes, the 4K looks better than the previous Blu-ray. It is a big upgrade over the previous Blu-ray. But don't go into it expecting the levels of quality of like Dune or even any of those that I've talked about. Even Red Dawn, if you've gotten Red Dawn recently by Shout and Scream Factory, that release looks drastically better with more stability and things like that than what you're gonna see in this. So that's where I said why that 7.8 review score comes into play. Now, if you enjoy all of this content that I work hard to create here on my YouTube channel, the only way I can continue to do this is with all of your support. Make sure to join my Collectors VIP Club. That is the best way to support this YouTube channel and show your membership status of this channel and how much you enjoy all the hard work I put into every single one of these comparison videos. As always, I exclusively test and do all these comparison videos for all of you, and the only way I can continue to do these is through all of your support. So you can either join the Collectors VIP Club, or you can always give a super thanks down through the super thanks button below. All of those amounts go straight back into this YouTube channel. That's how I'm able to afford to pay for the software and spend day after day testing all of these and spending all of this time getting all of those screenshot comparisons off of the disc, because it is extremely time consuming. And that's why no one else wants to spend all their time creating all of these comparison reviews like I do, because they are extremely time consuming. I can't just make an 8-minute video and throw it up. I have to go in and I have to spend all this time getting all the data and testing all the data, making sure the time codes of all the screenshots compare and show up at the exact same times. They're the exact same image, and that's a lot of time consuming work. And there's a lot of extra benefits that you get for joining the Collectors VIP Club. There's videos. I've released several videos on there, and there's going to be more videos. Every few weeks, I release new VIP exclusive videos on there, and that's only for my VIP Club members. So you get a bunch of perks and other benefits on top of just the videos. But when you join that little bit of support goes straight back into this channel, and that's truly how I can keep providing all this content for all of you. Without that VIP Collectors Club, I couldn't continue to create all these videos because YouTube pays pennies on every video I create, which it doesn't seem to matter if I get 1,000, it doesn't matter if I get 5,000 views. I get maybe $1. That's total that I make on a video. That's why the only way I can continue to create this is through that VIP Collectors Club or through the Super Thanks. So make sure to consider giving a super thanks or joining that Collectors VIP Club. This one was a really interesting release, and I was excited to review it and dive into it. And I do appreciate Shout and Scream Factory sending it to me early for review. I've gotten a lot of these in early for review, and it's been great getting them in, so that way I can let you all know the quality before the release date. just understand everything that I said earlier in the review, so that way you set your expectations correctly when you go to watch it. I hope all of you have a blessed day, and I've always got something new and exciting coming out very soon.